Every day the world loses legends, icons whose lives shaped our culture, our memories, our hearts. From actors to musicians, pioneers to visionaries, their stories deserve to be remembered and celebrated. Welcome back. Here we honor the lives, achievements, and legacies of those who passed, today keeping their memory alive for generations to come. The news arrived quietly, but for many longtime music fans, it felt deeply personal. Dennis Locorriere, the warm and unmistakable voice behind Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, passed away on May 16, 2026 at the age of 76. For decades his songs had drifted through car radios, family kitchens, and late-night dance halls, carrying stories filled with humor, longing, and heartbreak. Now that familiar voice had fallen silent, leaving many to wonder how one singer managed to connect so deeply with ordinary people for so many years. In the hours after his passing was confirmed, tributes began appearing from musicians, radio hosts, and lifelong fans. Some remembered his rough but emotional vocals. Others spoke about the comfort his music brought during difficult moments in their lives. One fan wrote online, "Dennis sang like he understood every lonely person listening." It was a simple message, but it captured something many people had always felt about him. Long before fame arrived, Dennis Locorriere was just a young musician with a guitar and a restless dream. Born in New Jersey in 1949, he grew up surrounded by the changing sounds of American music. Rock, country, folk, and blues all shaped his early years. Yet even then there was something different about his voice. It was not polished or perfect in the traditional sense. Instead it carried honesty. That honesty would later become the heart of Dr. Hook's sound. When Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show emerged in the early 1970s, the group quickly stood apart from other bands of the era. Their music mixed comedy with sadness and playful storytelling with genuine emotion. Songs like Sylvia's Mother, Sharing the Night Together, and When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman became unforgettable hits. But behind the catchy melodies was Dennis himself, delivering every lyric with warmth and sincerity. As the band's popularity grew, so did his reputation as one of the most recognizable voices in country rock. Yet fame often brought pressure that audiences could not see. Touring schedules became exhausting. The music industry changed rapidly around him. Still, Dennis continued performing year after year, carrying the same emotional energy onto the stage even as decades passed. Friends often described him as humble despite his success. Former collaborators remembered how he treated crew members and fans with kindness long after concerts had ended. Music producer Ron Halfkind once said, "Dennis never sang down to people. He sang to them." That quiet ability helped him build a connection that lasted far beyond the charts. There was also pain hidden beneath some of the group's brightest songs. Many listeners later realized how much loneliness and vulnerability lived inside his performances. His voice could sound playful one moment, then deeply wounded the next. That emotional contrast became part of what made Dr. Hook unforgettable. In recent years, Dennis continued touring internationally, especially in the United Kingdom and Europe, where loyal audiences still filled theaters to hear the songs that shaped their youth. Even as age slowed him physically, fans noticed that his voice still carried the same emotional truth. During one performance he reportedly told the crowd, "These songs belong to all of us now." The audience answered with a standing ovation. After news of his death spread, fellow musicians shared heartfelt tributes. One longtime friend wrote, "The world lost a storyteller tonight." Others reflected on how his music helped bridge generations, with parents introducing Dr. Hook records to their children decades after the songs first appeared. Dennis Locorriere leaves behind more than hit records or sold-out concerts. He leaves behind memories tied to first loves, broken hearts, long road trips, and quiet nights when a song suddenly understood exactly how someone felt. His voice carried ordinary emotions in extraordinary ways. And even now, somewhere, an old Dr. Hook song is still playing softly through a radio speaker, reminding listeners of a man whose music never needed perfection to feel unforgettable. The music felt impossible to ignore. Inside crowded clubs and city streets during the late 1980s, one song seemed to follow people everywhere. The beat was loud, playful, and alive with energy. But behind that unforgettable sound was a voice that helped change hip-hop forever. When news quietly spread that Rob Bass had passed away, many fans returned to that music once again, asking the same emotional question. How did one song become part of so many lives across generations? For older fans, It Takes Two was more than a party anthem. It became a symbol of an era when hip-hop was beginning to break through into mainstream America. Long before rap dominated charts around the world, Rob Bass helped carry the culture into places it had never reached before. His music crossed barriers of race, age, and geography, creating something joyful that felt universal. In the hours after reports of his passing emerged, tributes filled social media with memories from fans, DJs, and artists. Some shared old cassette tapes and vinyl records. Others remembered hearing his music at school dances, basketball courts, or summer block parties. One fan wrote, "His songs made people smile before they even realized it." That simple memory seemed to echo everywhere online. Born Robert Ginyard, Rob Bass grew up in Harlem during a time when hip-hop itself was still young. The streets around him were filled with creativity, struggle, rhythm, and competition. DJs carried speakers into parks. Young artists battled for attention with raw talent and confidence. Somewhere inside that world, Rob Bass discovered the voice and charisma that would later define his career. His partnership with DJ Easy Rock changed everything. Together they created music that blended sharp rap delivery with infectious dance beats. Then came It Takes Two in 1988. Almost immediately, the track exploded across radio stations, clubs, and television screens. The song's energy felt impossible to resist. But success also brought pressure that few people saw at the time. Hip-hop was evolving quickly, and many early artists struggled to keep pace with changing trends. Rob Bass experienced both the excitement and uncertainty that came with sudden fame. Yet even as music styles changed over the years, It Takes Two never disappeared. There was something timeless about the song. New generations kept discovering it through movies, commercials, sports arenas, and social media clips. For many younger listeners, the track became their first connection to old-school hip-hop. Music historian Alan Light once said, "Rob Bass helped make rap feel fun without losing its identity." That balance became part of his lasting influence. Friends later described him as energetic but grounded away from the spotlight. He often spoke proudly about hip-hop's early days and the culture that shaped him. In interviews he seemed less interested in fame than in the joy music created for ordinary people. That humility stayed with many who worked beside him. As tributes continued to pour in, several artists credited Rob Bass for opening doors during a critical moment in music history. One rapper shared online, "Without pioneers like Rob Bass, there is no mainstream hip-hop." Another simply wrote, "Thank you for the soundtrack of our youth." For many fans, his passing also brought back memories of a different America. An era of boom boxes, roller rinks, crowded dance floors, and neighborhood parties where music pulled strangers together for a few unforgettable minutes. Rob Bass's voice became part of those moments, even for people who never realized how deeply those memories would stay with them. Now, as listeners return once again to the songs that made them dance decades ago, the beat still carries the same feeling it always did. Bright, energetic, alive. And somewhere beneath that famous rhythm remains the voice of a man who helped transform hip-hop from a growing movement into a worldwide culture that still moves millions today. The first warning came from a man missing 3 fingers. He stood beside the old wooden dock as our boat prepared to leave for the jungle interior. Rain dripped from the edge of his hat. His eyes stayed fixed on the dark tree line behind us. "Don't follow voices after sunset," he said quietly. Then he walked away before I could ask what he meant. At the time I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. This happened in the Peruvian Amazon during the wet season. 4 of us were filming wildlife near a remote river basin that locals rarely entered anymore. The jungle there felt different from the start. Too quiet in some places. Too loud in others. Even during daylight it felt like something was watching from behind the vines. You could hear insects screaming in the trees. Monkeys crashing through branches overhead. Water dripping constantly from leaves thick as leather. The air smelled rotten and sweet at the same time. And every few hours, we heard whistles. Not bird calls. Human whistles. Short. Distant. The guide told us not to answer them. The first 2 nights passed without incident. We stayed near campfires and kept our equipment dry beneath tarps while storms rolled over the jungle canopy. But on the 3rd night, one of our crew members disappeared for almost an hour. His name was Luis. When he finally returned, he looked pale, shaking. He claimed he heard his brother calling for help deeper in the trees. The problem was, his brother had died years earlier. None of us slept much after that. Around midnight, I heard movement outside my tent. Slow footsteps circling camp. Not animal sounds. Actual footsteps pressing into mud. I grabbed my flashlight. The beam hit nothing except trees and hanging vines swaying gently in the dark. But then I heard breathing. Close. Way too close. I froze. The jungle suddenly became silent. No insects. No frogs. Nothing. That silence felt worse than any scream. Then came the whistle again. Right behind me. I spun around so fast I slipped into the mud. My flashlight landed sideways, pointing toward the riverbank. That's when I saw someone standing between the trees. Thin. Perfectly still. At first I thought it was Luis. But the figure was too tall. His arms looked wrong somehow. Too long. Hanging almost to its knees. And its face. I couldn't make out the face. The flashlight flickered once. The figure vanished. The next morning we found footprints around camp. Bare human footprints. Deep enough to show clear toe marks in the mud. But they ended suddenly near the river. As if whoever made them had simply disappeared. Our guide wanted to leave immediately. He refused to explain why. He just kept muttering the same phrase under his breath. The jungle keeps what it calls. That afternoon, rain trapped us beneath thick canopy for hours. Visibility dropped fast. Everything looked gray and distorted. Even familiar trails became impossible to recognize. Then Luis heard the voice again. This time all of us heard it. Someone calling his name from deeper in the jungle. Soft at first. Then louder. Luis. The voice sounded weak. Human. Desperate. Luis started walking toward it before we stopped him. But the strangest part wasn't the voice. It was the direction. The sound came from an area our guide insisted had no trail at all. Just swamp. And sinkholes. Still the voice continued. Luis. Closer now. You would think curiosity would disappear in moments like that. But fear does strange things to people. It makes you want answers even when your instincts beg you to run. Then the screaming started. Not one scream. Dozens. All around us. Some sounded human. Others sounded like animals dying. Branches shook violently overhead. Something massive moved through the trees beside us. We couldn't see it clearly, but we heard it breathing hard through the rain. Luis dropped his backpack and ran. Straight toward the voice. We chased after him for maybe 30 seconds before the ground beneath us collapsed into black water and mud. I barely caught a root before sinking completely. When we finally climbed out, Luis was gone. No footprints. No calls for help. Nothing. Search teams looked for him 2 days later. They never found a body. The locals only asked one question when we returned. Did he follow the whistles? None of us answered. Because deep down we already knew what took him.